Hey everyone, we just got done recording today's episode with Joe Fairless, and he was absolutely remarkable. He is thinking at a very, very high level. He has a huge organization. He's extremely influential in the world of real estate, but we don't really talk about real estate much. We do, but we talk about some just leadership, his long-term vision, what he's doing. By the way, he started a fire in the wild, so he's going to talk the story behind that and why he's doing that. He's going to talk about the lessons he learned from his dad and how that's the main, like when he thinks about not success, but significance, how he thinks about just his everyday actions and what he does. You're really going to want to check this out. We talk about how he grew his business, how he scaled it, and his leadership style, some of the operating systems and operating things that he's doing. There's a lot of value in here. Joe Fairless is look him up. He is a major name, a major person to be reckoned with from relatively close to our area. You're really going to enjoy this episode. Check it out. Hello and welcome to Purpose Matrix. I am very, very excited for today's guest, Joe Fairless, a semi-local legend, but a legend really across the real estate and business space across not just the U.S., but the world, really. Joe, how are you doing today?
Hey, looking forward to our conversation, Phil. Doing well.
For our listeners, Joe from Cincinnati, Ohio. Again, he's just got an amazing resume, but more importantly, and we're going to talk about this today, he likes to talk about some really impactful discussions, not just business. So we're going to get into some great discussion with him. He's the co-founder of Ashcroft Capital, over $2 billion in assets under management. By the way, maybe more than that now, probably $2.5 billion or maybe even $3 billion. But he's the longest host of, it's called the Best Ever Real Estate Podcast. Longest every single day, 3,000 days straight, they've released an episode. So you talk about consistency and discipline. That is what Joe's all about. Author of several best-selling books, national speaker, thought leader. And, he's really, real estate is Joe's game. That's the game he's played. But there's more to it than that. And we're going to get into that. So Joe, I want to tee it up with, who is Joe Fairless? You tell your side of the story.
Who am I? I'm someone who strives to do what I say I'm going to do. That's important to me. Reliability and just consistency, like you mentioned. The podcast is an example. Now, I don't do the podcast regularly anymore, but we have other hosts who host the podcast, and the show continues to go on every day. I was doing the podcast though for the first 1,500 or so episodes. So I would find the interview guests. At the beginning, I would find the interview guests, edit the episode, do the interview, publish it every single day. And, when you interview that many people, there's two incredibly valuable things that come from it. And in order, one is the relationships that you build along the way. Two is the lessons that you learn from those individuals who have experience in real estate and commercial real estate. So that's a little bit about who I am, and what the podcast represents as part of who I am, because it truly is a microcosm of how I like to approach things. And that is just consistency and roll up your sleeves and get after it.
And two things. One, 1,500 episodes, so 5 years straight, basically, you doing everything just to help people understand. Cause I can relate to that, but I'm not doing it every day, and I'm not doing all the editing. That is a lot of work.
So at the beginning, I was doing it all, but then for the first 1,500 or so episodes, I was doing the interviews, but I did have a podcast editor.
Yeah, nonetheless, consistency and work ethic.
Yeah, but what I was pretty much finding all the guests and then interviewing them.
By the way, you have a Rolodex of 1,500 guests I want to hear about too, or I'll just go to the show, I guess. But the point is, and what I love about your answer is, you didn't say, when I asked you, who are you? You didn't say, hey, I'm a real estate guy. You didn't even reference your company's name. You didn't say any of those things, right? You just said, I'm all about do what I say I'm going to do, and consistency. And I love that answer so much.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so sadly, it stands out nowadays to do what you say you're going to do. And just to be clear, that doesn't mean that You mentioned the real estate front. It doesn't mean that the deals I put together, the projections will be hit all the time, because they won't be. Some we've exceeded, some we've done the opposite, and we've fallen below projections. When I say what I say I'm going to do, what I'm referring to is the things that are under my control always, which is, hey, if I say I'm going to call you, I'm going to call you. If I say I'm going to follow up with you, I'm going to follow up with you. If I have under my control, I'm going to go take a certain action, I'm going to go take that action. And, sometimes the results aren't what we want. Sometimes they're better than what we want. But it's the things I can control, my actions, that's what I am referring to. And it's, do what I say I'm going to do.
So first of all, I love this topic. So just because you talk about this and you talk about identity alignment, and just who you are isn't what you do. And by the way, it is especially not your career. Who you are is like what you do, the actions you take, that defines who you are, not your career or other things. But are you able to separate, are you truly able to separate from outcomes because you're just content with what you're doing? And if you are, has it always been that way, or how has your mindset evolved around that?
I am hit and miss on that. When I have a disciplined mind, then I am able to separate the outcomes from my actions. And hey, I'm doing what I can do. I'm doing what's under my control, and I'm doing the best I can. But sometimes when the outcomes aren't there, even with doing that, then I slip into the, damn it, and so, I know intellectually that, hey, follow the process, do what you need to do, but ultimately it's also about results. So, that's tough to reconcile 100% of the time, but I do my best at it.
And what's interesting is we're like, extreme ownership. We're talking about that kind of here. And we want to own our results. We want to own the outcomes we get, for sure. And we especially don't want to blame others, complain. We don't want to put those upon other people. At the same time, the way I think we have to look at this is our results are feedback on what the actions we need to take and what do we need to adjust. And so we're not ignoring the outcomes, but we have to understand what we own and what we don't. And I will say that, I understand this concept like you do. And it's really easy to talk about on a podcast when we're kind of engaged in talking about this. It is not always easy to do, because when the results start to fall apart, chaos sets in, negative self-talk, all these other things come in too. So I can relate to this for sure.
I mean, I think, there's all sorts of sayings that I think of, failure equals feedback. It's not about what we get, it's who we become. And I embrace the second one, especially. I embrace it's not what we get, it's who we become. And that's good when we get wonderful things also, when we get the rewards, when maybe we didn't quite earn those rewards. And on the opposite is true, right? We should have earned that reward, but something happened where it didn't take place. And ultimately, it's not what we get, it's who we become. And having that approach, Tim Ferriss, in one of his books a while back, talked about 50-50 goals. And I've always embraced 50-50 goals. 50% of any goal that we set is achieving it. But the other 50% is who we become along the way. So he sets up his goals in a way that, hey, at the end of the day, if I fail, but I take all the actions to set myself up for success, then I'm better off because of it, because I will have acquired the following skills, and whatever those skills are. So thinking about goals as 50-50 goals and being intentional about the process along the way and who it makes us become sets us up for success in the long run, because then we'll just be that much stronger when we go tackle a new goal.
I love that. And I haven't heard that before, but what I like about it is it still has a goal around, okay, what are the results we want to get? And we're evaluating that. And we're also looking at, like, to me on that part of it, what's the best thing that can happen and what's the worst thing that can happen from a specific results perspective. But the other 50% and who we become, I love that. And I mean, 50% is a strong part of the equation. But what I like about it, but also what's hard about who we become is, Steve Jobs says we can't connect the dots forward. It's hard to put, like, if a deal's a home run, the first 50%, and we achieve that, that's hard. That's easier for us, our minds, to wrap hey, we're going to make, $500,000, $1 million, whatever it is. Like, this is going to go well. We can wrap our minds around the achievement part of it. It is very hard for us to wrap our minds around the other 50% and who we might become because of this, deal that we're going to do, person we're going to hire, risk we're going to take, whatever that means. It's hard to put our minds around it. So what I would encourage people to do is make sure you're putting the who we become part of it at least at 50%, because you can't even comprehend what is on the other side of this and the lessons you'll learn from that. I don't know if that resonates with you. You're nodding. So what do you think about it?
Yeah. I think you can actually measure it, the who we become part, through getting better at certain skills. I mean, I don't know, an example on top of my head. I want to make, I want to practice my 3-pointers in basketball. I want to make 70% of them. Well, you can measure along the way, not only your percent increase, and if you don't hit 70%, maybe you've improved from your 20% if you're like me, and you've gone to 25% or 30%. So you can measure the progress. So you're seeing progress. And then, there's undoubtedly some other benefits for practicing 3-point shots, getting stronger, getting faster, getting healthier. So there's other metrics that you can look at. And so ultimately, Tony Robbins talks about fulfillment. There's 2 components to fulfillment. It's growth and contribution. So, you can insert the word progress instead of growth. So progress and contribution. If we feel like we're making progress and we feel like we're doing something meaningful, then we're fulfilled. It's that simple. And I completely embrace that. So that's why that's so important to do, in my opinion, the 50-50 goals, because then we're setting ourselves up for the progress component. And then, just if the goal is something that is meaningful, that matters to us and others, then there's a contribution component, and then you're fulfilled.
I love it. And I love the idea. If we can figure out how to measure our growth and put that in, like that should be an important part of the equation. So the other thing I want to shift gears here to, Joe, is, so you are the biggest name in commercial real estate, quite frankly. But I want to, so our listeners, we got entrepreneurs, we got real estate investors, we got leaders in different businesses that are just trying to get better, trying to grow, right? Like you just said. What role does, when you think about what you're trying to do, how do you put business, real estate, money, what role does that really play in this? Is it important that it's real estate, or is there a bigger, is real estate, for example, just a piece of kind of the vehicle within the mission? How do you think about real estate and money's role in what you're trying to do?
Well, I would say that I enjoy the relationships in the business. I enjoy getting to know you. Before you started recording, we talked about a couple mutual friends that we have, and that's what I enjoy the most. If we were doing something else besides real estate, and I was still able to, learn from people, get to know people, build those relationships, hear people's stories. Like I love hearing accredited investor stories about how they got to where they're at. What was their journey? What were the challenges? I really enjoy getting to know people.
So we're talking about relationships. So Joe, a long time ago, those relationships where you had peers and people you're working alongside, and I'm sure you still have peers, but your role in relationships, and you're now a mentor, you're a leader, you have a huge organization, a huge company, you're leading a lot of people. So we talk about relationships. Let's talk about leadership a little bit and your leadership style. What is your approach to leadership with your organization, and how has that evolved over time?
Well, we just started with EOS, and I know you're familiar with that, and many other listeners are. And by it's been almost a year that we've implemented EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System, and it's from the book Traction. I know we were late to the party, but man, it's been great having effective meetings. The L10 meetings, level 10 meetings, basically just the leadership gets together once a week and discusses the issues, really tackles issues. There's a scorecard with KPIs that are discussed, and then most of the conversation that week is talking about issues and resolving the issues and making sure we're all aligned. And that's been just a phenomenal resource for us to get on the same page, because my company has an office in New York, and we have an office in Dallas, where our property management company, DFW, where our property management company is, in New York, or where the asset management, the Ashcroft Capital team is. But the people I oversee, we work remotely because we work with investors. And it's important for us to be all over the US so that we can meet face to face with investors. So with that, remote work becomes a challenge. And that challenge is, obviously, it's harder to manage people remotely than it is in person. It's harder to create that camaraderie, that bond, the vibe with the company culture. And it will never be as good if we were in person, but it can be good, just not as good as in person, but it can still be good. And that's what the EOS system has allowed us to do. So you mentioned leadership style. Well, it's having the right infrastructure and procedures so that everyone's aligned. And then it's having a feel for what people are working on, and knowing when you need to reinforce. When you need to know when to help them out, when to push, and that comes with having really solid relationships with people, and knowing what they have on their plate. Are they maximizing their potential, or are they letting off a little bit more than they should? And so you need to help them maximize their potential. So it's just kind of reading the situations, but having that infrastructure in place is the real difference maker that I've seen for us.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing, EOS, we are coming up right on a year ourselves as well. Nice. So we are late to the game, but it has been really game changing for us. And I think one of the biggest things first, so the book Traction, Get a Grip is the Fable. We've talked about it before. I'm actually having an EOS implementer come on the show. I'm going to interview her here in a couple of weeks. But the issues list. So one thing I learned when I was in the corporate world is so many organizations are talking about all the great things, and we should celebrate wins. We should do that. But if we can have the trust and like what you said is foundational relationships with our team members, where they just trust us, that we're, if they bring up issues to us, we're not here to complain about them and, all the negativity. No, we have to get things done. We have to solve problems. That's what we're here for. That's what our teams are here for, especially our leadership teams. So if we just have an environment where we're bringing issues to the table, we're getting input, getting alignment on them, and making decisions, not with 1,000 slides and all this stuff that, I saw a lot in my past, but just a culture of managing by exception where we're addressing the issues, celebrating wins, but addressing issues. I think that's so important. And I think the foundation is relationships, but you need the systems, the processes, the infrastructure to really hold people accountable and see where they're at, right? And that's what EOS, I think, helps to do. So I appreciate that. What would your leadership team say about your, like, are you a passive leader? Are you like not in your face? Like, are you more direct? Like, what's your personality within these discussions? Are you kind of challenging them to step up? Are you, what? Help me see into these level 10 meetings that you're in a little bit.
Yeah, I'm someone who will speak up and be the voice if needed, but I prefer to have the team lead the conversation, and then as I'm needed, I jump in because I think that's the best way to create leaders on my team, is to elevate them and elevate their voice and hear what they have to say and let them direct things, so that if I'm not there, everything everything continues to run smoothly if I'm not there. So I will be present, but if there's actually a 3-second rule, or maybe it's 5-second rule, I don't remember what we do, but if there's silence, before I was one who would speak up and try and move things along, but now someone else on the team does that after we talked a little bit, because I want them to keep things progressing without needing me to insert myself.
Yeah. And I think one thing you said there is your leadership style, I'm sure, has evolved over time, because your key role as a leader isn't to just lead people that are doing tactical things. Your key role as a leader right now is to develop leaders, right? Allow them to make the decisions, to lead themselves. Your team is leading teams of other people. So your main role in your organization is creating leaders, as you said it. And I like that so much. One thing that you talk about as well is, getting clear as an organization, and EOS talks about this too, but values and long-term thinking. And I don't know if you've always thought about this. Did EOS bring this up? But you talk about it a little bit. Tell me about, maybe let's go to long-term thinking. How do you think about, like, what's your relationship? How much visioning exercising have you done or do you do? Tell me about long-term thinking and your perception of it.
Well, I've always embraced the philosophy of long-term relationships with long-term people. I do a vision board every year. I've been doing a vision board every year since I've been an entrepreneur. So that's 2013. So 12 years. I've been doing a vision board every single year. And how I approach the vision board now, it's evolved how I approach it now, because before it was what vision boards typically are, which are pictures of things you want to accomplish or attract into your life. And now it's actually more of it is a list. It's a list of things for the year. For example, I have 7 closer friendships on there. I have a fitness goal, 190 pounds by the 15th of every month, 10 out of 12 months. I have a night out with my daughter every month. I have some business goals. I have also 3 bucket list items. And the bucket list items for this year for me, 1, participate in a chess tournament. 2, which I've done. That's a funny story, but I don't know how relevant it is here. 2 is create a shelter and sleep in it for a night. And 3 is create fire primitively. And I just did I've done the chess tournament, and I just created fire primitively last Friday, actually. So all I have left.
Are you going on Survivor now, where you got to make the fire challenge? My kids want to go.
I would get last place.
My kids want me to go on that show. I'm like, I don't know. I talk about, we did a hike last month for 3 days, but we had the food made. We had the tents made.
Yeah.
Like the fires were there. Like, this is not primitive. I did not make fire primitively. Like, I wouldn't last. I would get hangry. My blood sugar, I'd have issues. I would lose my, on people. Like, I would probably be a good Survivor player for about an hour. And then I would, not be good at it very quickly. So the shelter, like, what's the, a lot of amazing things. By the way, we also talked before the show about you play poker with a couple of buddies of mine. We have some mutual friends. So I'm a little bit curious about the chess, but I think where I want to go is, like, what's the motivation behind the shelter and the fire? Like, what's your thought process?
Just to get out in get out in nature. Cincinnati Children's Hospital, probably the best children's hospital in the United States. They're now prescribing, and I haven't fact checked this, but I was told this. So they're now prescribing nature walks as ways to heal yourself, and so it's just healthy to get out in nature and just go do that stuff. Get away from the screens, all the screens that you and I are looking into right now, that a lot of people are looking at while they're listening to this. It's just healthy to disconnect from that. To be clear on the create fire primitively that I did last Friday. So there's an asterisk next to that because it's all about the wood that you have. A lot of it has to do with the wood that you have, because it has to be really dry. It has to be the right wood. And so I bought a kit on Amazon that has the wood and actually had the cable connected to the spindle already. And I noticed whenever I got it, my goal is create it primitively. Well, they didn't have this cord that was attached back then, and they didn't have these washers that were on the actual spindle that made it go a little bit faster. So I'm counting it for my bucket list, but I would not pass on a couple technicalities if it was an objective third party asking if I actually did it. But it took a while. It was hard. It was hard work. For me, it was hard work. It took me a couple hours on one day, and then I didn't get it, and then I was spent. Just such a forearm workout. And then the next day, I was able to get it done after about an hour and a half or so. The first day I got 2 embers, but didn't know what to do with them. Then I did some research on, all right, what do you do with these embers once you get them? and then I figured it out on the second day.
First of all, we're going to count it, Joe, but if it makes you feel any better, I have the fire pit in the backyard, and we have some good lumber and bad lumber, and I can't even get it started with fire starter and cardboard and everything else if it's not the right wood. So I think we're going to count it. What I like about the vision exercise you talked about is, and I think you're being humble, and just in this whole discussion, you're being humble, but you talked about a lot of these personal things, and you said, and some business items, but it was very subtle. Like, it wasn't, to me, it sounded like it wasn't, not that business and what you're doing isn't important, because I think business is a great vehicle to have a great impact to the relationships you build and the impact you have. So, and by the way, if you don't know, look up Joe. He's doing a lot of amazing philanthropical things as well that he wouldn't probably talk about. But the business has created freedom for you. And, there's all the talk of financial freedom. How do you, like, if you think about personal freedom, how do you think about that term, and like, what does it mean to you?
Well, I'll answer that to close the loop on the vision board, because I think it's an important point. So on that vision board, I have those items listed, but then my daughter, I have a young daughter, and I have a sticker book that I just bought off Amazon, and it's just a bunch of fun, different irreverent stickers. And every time I accomplish something on my vision board, she gets a sticker, and sticks it up on the vision board. So it's a family activity, and it's been a lot of fun because it also has some accountability associated to it, even though it's with my daughter, my young daughter, but it's fun. So I've got stickers to see the progress for the year, and I'm able to see what do I need to increase, or where am I on track,
especially in the real estate space. But a big topic. There's FIRE movement, whether it's real estate or not. There's just financial freedom. There's just freedom, though, because I think if it's real estate or business, like what people are really looking for is freedom. And people might think, I want financial freedom so I can go sit on a beach, which is going to last 3 days. And then if you were able to achieve it, you're going to go do something impactful. And I think it's more about the freedom really to pursue purpose, passion, bigger things. But I was just curious what is your frame of mind around, just freedom in general for yourself?
Well, that's why I enjoy doing what I do with real estate, bringing in accredited investors, because it's my belief that that we can help them continue to and continue to maximize their time on earth by delivering the good results. And sometimes they're not good, sometimes they are good, as with any investment. But that's the philosophy that I have, because I respect the amount of work that people invest in their profession, and they're trading time for dollars, and time is and attention are the most precious resources that we have. So I take what I do very seriously, because we're dealing with people's time and attention that they've invested. And that's how I think about it. That's how I've always thought about it, and for myself and for others.
Well, what I like is, so first of all, you're not saying we're taking people's money. If you are, but and you're not taking it. They're investing it with you and entrusting you with it. But they're not entrusting you with the money. The money, you're saying, they're entrusting you with all the time, all the effort, all the sweat, tears that they put into earning that money. They're entrusting you with it to be good stewards of it. And I think, accredited investors have at least earned enough income over time to be accredited, or saved, or done some things right financially to get to that point. And a lot of accredited investors, especially if they're not, if accredited investors are passionate about what they're doing and how they became accredited, whatever it might be, that's fantastic. Keep doing that. But there's also a way to accelerate your wealth, in my opinion, by investing in real estate, whether that's active for you or passively with Joe or whatever it might be. But if you're not passionate about what you're doing, if you're looking for a different path, possibly, I think real estate, passive investing in real estate, is a great vehicle to then give you the freedom to pursue your passion, because you probably have, if you're accredited, the financial means, or you're not that far away from the financial means to really take a big leap and pursue your passion. So I like that a lot. And I didn't know where you'd go with it. By the way, if you noticed, Joe, and this is a compliment, he didn't answer what freedom means to him. He answered it, how am I trying to provide freedom for others, which I appreciate. So I just think it's awesome what you're doing, and the mindset you have, and the amount of responsibility you take in, people investing their time and sweat, as you said, into Ashcroft Capital and what you're doing.
Thank you.
So I want to talk. So I referenced there, the last thing I want to talk about, then we'll take this out. But, you referenced courage a little bit earlier, and taking leaps, and like how you assess the 50-50 principle. You've made some, I suspect you've done some very courageous things in your career. And I want to talk about that. What are some of the biggest things that stand out? The hardest things that maybe people wouldn't suspect were the hardest things for you?
Well, I think about that question. I'll answer it in the context of my life, but I mean, compared to soldiers overseas, or police officers, or medical professionals doing surgery, or cleaning up bloodshot wounds. I mean, I hadn't done anything like courageous. So I just want, that context to be stated in advance. Because when I'll talk about courageous, I'm talking about business, not life or death. So with that in mind, I'd say that from an outsider's perspective, some things that come to mind. To me, it was just, this is what I'm doing. And I just didn't find it courageous or risky, but others might think differently. I out of high school, I wanted to play college football. I tried out for Blinn Junior College, didn't make it to team. Then went to Mary Hardin Baylor, a Division III school, made the team, but I was on the junior varsity team and I wasn't playing on the junior varsity of a Division III team. So then I left there and then went to Texas Tech and enjoyed time there and graduated from there. And then from Texas, I went to New York City. Didn't know anyone. Lived there by myself for a year in a very, at the time, dangerous area. It was the busiest police precinct in all the 5 boroughs. It was East Flatbush, Brooklyn. Biggie Smalls wrote songs about it. And then I lived in East Village for 9 years. Always had a roommate from Craigslist usually, and that was entertaining. Looking back on it, even more entertaining than when I was actually living in it, living in the experiences. So moving to New York City without knowing anyone, it took me it was really hard to get a job there before I graduated. Everyone wanted to see me graduate. Well, only the people who did talk to me, they wanted to see me graduate and then move up there to make sure I was serious about moving up there. But eventually I was able to get a job right out of college. So moving up to New York City, having visited there maybe once once before, and I wanted to compete with the best of the best in advertising. That's the industry I was in. And then, from New York City for 10 years, then did it my first syndication. It ended up being in Cincinnati, Ohio, and it wasn't going according to plan. So moving to Cincinnati, leaving New York and living in the model unit of the property in Cincinnati, and packing up all my stuff in the morning and then showing that apartment to prospective residents, getting in my Corolla and going to Home Depot and getting the asphalt filler to then repair potholes at night. Just being very hands-on. I don't think it's courageous, but I think it's, shows the dedication that I have towards what I'm pursuing. And maybe that's part of being courageous, is having a determined dedication towards what you have locked in on. And those are some things that come to mind.
Well, 3 things there. First of all, I love that you just put this in perspective, because we think we maybe this is me, not you or not our listeners, but we overthink. My personality, I overthink things a lot. And let's put this in perspective, right? We got people fighting for our country. We got all, police officers, firefighters. There's all kinds of things happening in the world right at the time of this recording that are like, okay, so how courageous are we really being? Let's put this in perspective. And I think it's important for everyone out there, put this in perspective. Like, are you really taking that big of a leap? And then I would say, go back to the 50-50 principle that Joe talked about earlier. And, when you moved to New York, my guess is at the time, you didn't have that 50-50 principle in mind, but I can't imagine the 50% that you talked about. That's who is this going to help me become? Was I can't imagine the impact that had on your confidence, just your ability to go figure something out, going into it completely blindly and saying, okay, for the net. And this is where we can train for, again, courage is relative. I get that, but we can train ourselves in our mindset for courage and doing hard things in business and in life. Because again, we can't connect the dots forward. I can't imagine what the New York experience did for your confidence. And then the fact that you just reinforcing your commitment to your investors' time, energy, sweat, and money, and moving to Cincinnati to hustle and get it done. That speaks a lot to your character. So I appreciate that, Joe. One last thing is, I have a question that I like to ask, but I'm going to change it a little bit for you. How do you define, you talk about success versus significance. How do you define significance?
I want people to be better off having come across me than not. And yeah, that's somewhat low bar, but if I have enough people who are better off having, come across, me, my stuff, my, books or podcasts, or just, our two buddies that we were talking about before, just hanging out that I've hung out with, mutual friends of ours. It that's the significance part for me is, that's what's important to me is just being a positive, being a net positive for people. That's important to me.
Well, you're doing it, and you're doing it, I would say, at scale through, you're not seeing, like, to me, you're planting all these seeds, doing these good things. Just, you can hear your character coming through, and, you can't always see the outcome, as we talked about earlier, of all the things you're doing, but you're planting the seeds and you're having an impact. Joe, this has been great getting to know you more. I want to close out with this question. How does what you do, how does it make you feel?
What I do, how I approach things when nobody's looking, that's what makes me proud. That's a lesson I learned in middle school with my dad. Actually, he had I can't remember what I did. I did something wrong, was dishonest, and he had a plaque with him, and it said essentially, do the right things when no one's looking, but it had a mirror on it. It was a plaque with a mirror, and he had me stand up and read it. And I was looking at myself, and it had an impact on me. And so that's what I'm most proud of. And that makes me feel good knowing that, I strive to do the right things, when no one's looking, and holding myself accountable.
Yeah. Joe, that's amazing. And honestly, it's a great way to end this discussion. I appreciate it so much, talking about how at the very beginning of the episode, we said, who are you? And you talked about just, I'm someone that's trying to do the right thing, be consistent. And I appreciate that so much. Joe, you've been very generous with your time. I mean, to our listeners, Joe is not he is a very high in demand person. So Joe, I am sincerely appreciative of your time today. How can people find out more about you and what you're doing?
You can go to ashcroftcapital.com and learn more about us there.
Awesome. Joe, thanks so much. I appreciate the time for the Purpose Matrix. Signing off.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, everyone.